or don't say I don't know, but we're relying on the author to describe what the differences are here. Did you get what you expected to get? Okay? Inferences. And then results. Okay. There's a results guy taking the results of the stock market. Did you give representative data? Okay? Only state that in your paper. Avoid redundant data. Any redundancies. Avoid many tables and figures. Now, there's a fine line here. A lot of laboratory experiments, field applications have a lot of figures and data with good trends. Okay? You might want to stick those in an appendix if they are relevant. Okay? Or you might want to refer, if it's something that's coming out of the public domain, you might want to refer your readers to another paper to read that you might be writing. Or there's a list of, there's all sorts of ideas I can come up with about tables and figures. When I'm reading this, and as a technical editor, I don't want to be reading a paper that's full of tables and figures with no explanation. That's the idea. What do these tables and figures mean? Now, I've sent papers back because they have figures and tables that are not explained in the paper. Now, down to our discussion section. What is discussion? Well, you want to show the relationships among what you've observed. Okay, what you've observed in the field, what you've observed in the laboratory. Okay, and how that is different from what you expected, or how it's the same, or it confirms it. Okay, what are the relationships? And within the experiment or the field application, how are things related? That's what you want described in this discussion. The components of that discussion are exceptions or lack of correlation. We just talked a little bit about that. How the results and interpretation agree, or how they contrast with previously published results. That's why it's good to have that in the introduction. Talk about what other people have done. Okay, because readers are going to go back and look to see what other people have done, and they're going to note that you didn't describe that in your paper, and maybe they don't want to recommend to someone else to read. Okay? So you need to do that as an author. Theoretical implications and possible practical applications. This is a good statement because we need to have this, we need to describe the results in this section this way. Okay? How do you apply what you as the author have done, this good work you've done in this paper and shown in this paper, to me, okay, the reader? How can I apply this? Okay? Or what does it mean theoretically? If I'm in perhaps an academician, how does it mean to my discussion section or my lecture? Okay? New results. You need to explain it. The burden of proof is on you, the author. Conclusion section. Okay, now that we've done the discussion, we've done the results, the discussion, now it's conclusion. Okay? What's important about the conclusion? Well, you need to summarize all this information, okay? And you need to support the claims in the introduction. You need to tie it back to the introduction. And I would also say you need to tie it back to your abstract that you use for the conference. There have been several cases where I've read papers that I've sent them back to the author because their conclusions don't match up with the introduction. They've come up with they've actually speculated a lot of times and put those as conclusions, so they've relied on faith more than practical results that came out of their experiment or their process. Okay? You number the conclusions, supported by evidence in the paper. You don't just come up with a conclusion out of the blue that's not supported in the body of your paper. This is not done often, but it is done. You state the implications of new information. You can do that also in the conclusion section. And be consistent with the abstract. Okay, what you put in the abstract, if we go back to the abstract section, we talked about conclusions. State your conclusions in the abstract. Well, it has to agree with your conclusion section. Questions? Okay. So the question is, how often are they numbered or bulleted? I find Personally, I find it easier to number them. Yeah, you don't have to, but it's just a guideline, recommendation. It's easy for you to remember what you've done. You don't have to. No, you can write a couple of paragraphs about what your conclusions were. If they don't lend themselves to numbering or listing that way, that's fine. Yep. References. We talked a little bit about references. As you probably already know, they should be relevant, okay, and referenced in the paper. Don't put references in there that are not referenced in the paper through the SPE guidelines, style guidelines. The references also direct your readers to other information they can read on the subject that is not exactly like what you've written about. They can contrast other people's work, okay? And here's the policy for that. List only the references that are relevant and available to readers. Don't reference company reports that are not out in the public domain, okay? If you do, just put them as footnotes, okay? You and I may not be able to get something from Exxon, okay, that they've referenced and talked about, so you need to put in a footnote. Like personal communication, company report written such and such date. Put it as a footnote. Don't put it as your body of references. Great.
Two questions on references. First of all, a lot of technical publications nowadays have the website address of that paper, so it can be directly downloaded. Is that SPE policy now, or could it be put in the abstract, in the reference, so that it's hyperlinked direct to that paper?
No. Maybe you could answer that, Rebecca. Take the microphone,
second
please.
question. Maybe you can address both at once. The other question would be, a lot of publications now, because references seem to change where they are through time, they have a unique identifying number.
So I guess if you don't mind, I'll deviate just to
Go
answer
ahead.
that very quickly.
Yep.
One of the things that's happened in the last couple of years, because papers are being referenced and you want to make an evergreen link to it, a lot of publishers have gotten together and agreed to put what's called a DOI, a digital object identifier. And so at the end of a reference, you'll often see that DOI link. If you're looking through references that are online in a number of different places now, you'll see that. It says DOI, and has a bunch of numbers. The first set of numbers in there is the publisher's number. The second is the unique object identifiers for that paper. SPE has that done, and so if you look, that link will be on there. It's embedded in the PDFs. If we have it, if it's made as a link, it will automatically work in PDFs. So for our published papers, the ones that we actually publish in our journals, we go in and we put those references into them because we have an editorial process that goes in after the fact. So for any journal paper that's probably in the last 2 years forward, you'll start seeing all those DOI links. They aren't in there for the historical papers, but you can always find them online if you look through and do, if you go onto OnePetro, on that preview page, you will see that DOI link and you can put it into your own paper and references if you would like to.
So the answer is we don't always have a direct link. Yep. Okay. Any other questions? Okay. So everybody knows about references now. You know there's going to be a test after this. Tables and figures. Don't tabulate the following: supplementary data, lab numbers, results of simple calculations, column showing no significant variation. Just putting in a lot of numbers in there, maybe of your laboratory results, but they don't show any variation. So why are you putting them in? Okay. Data that should not be tabulated, don't put it into a figure. Okay. Graph-only data, put it in a figure that shows trends. Okay. If you got a shotgun blast of points out there, you can put it in as a figure, but then you got to explain why it's different from what you expected. I don't expect you would want to put that in.